Hey, Illinois, Unit 6. It's early in the morning. That's the bad news. The good news is it appears that you have Abe Lincoln on Unit 6, which if you're going to have kind of a ringer on Unit 6, Abe's pretty good. It's a pretty good ringer. Hey, my name is Tom Vance. I'm a professor of education at Kansas State University, and I've been doing the We the People program since 1992. I suggest you find other and things to do with your life after this great experience today, and not do that for 30 years. But I've enjoyed every year of it. So welcome to these finals.
Hey, everybody. Unlike Tom, who I think actually did We the People when Abe Lincoln was in it, I have only been doing it a few years. Sean Arthur's just outside of DC, teacher and lawyer, and I'm really looking forward to chatting with you all today.
My name is Lawana Davis. I am from a law school in Birmingham, Alabama called Cumberland School of Law. So I'm a law professor, and welcome to We the People.
And would you please introduce yourselves to us?
Hello, my name is Maisie Ronk. We are Unit 6. We are coached by Marshall Schacht. In the fall, I plan to attend the University of Illinois and majoring in computer science.
Hello, my name is Aiden Livesey. I go to St. Joseph Ogden High School, and my teacher is Marshall Schacht as well. In the fall, I plan to attend the University of Illinois to major in political science.
Hello, I'm Riley Clements, and I plan on attending the University of Illinois in the fall as well with a major in psychology.
A bunch of great majors at a great school. Welcome. We're going to have a great conversation, and my colleague, Ms. Davis, will read the question.
President Dwight D. Eisenhower said,
I'm Marshall Schacht. Welcome to St. Joe. Thank you very much. Good morning.
President Dwight D. Eisenhower said, "We must guard against the acquisition of unwarranted influence by the military-industrial complex. The potential for the disastrous rise of misplaced power exists and will persist. Do you agree or disagree, and why?" I'll stop there.
An unregulated military force is extremely dangerous to the general welfare of the people. An unregulated military can easily lead to a nation kept under the control of the government by force. Therefore, this would mean that the government could profit off of wars and conflict, which would make them more likely to seek out conflict and cause a safety concern for the entire nation. Essentially, it could lead to modern-day imperialism.
The founders of our nation had quite a few concerns with a standing army. With a well-armed army under the government's control, the people of the nation can easily be oppressed by force. The government could use its military power to oppress and conquer with little to no repercussion from the people. The founders were afraid of the government using the military as an offensive strategy that would suppress the people and wanted to create as many protections for the people against them as possible. As seen in Amendments 2 and 3, the founders guaranteed that the Army could not overstep their bounds, and if they were to do so, they would be met by armed civilians ready to protect themselves. In Washington's explanation of how he believed a standing army should be, he explained that although a large standing army in time of peace has never been considered dangerous to the liberties of a country, yet a few troops under certain circumstances are not only safe but indispensably necessary. Thus, while a standing army does present dangers itself, the threat the nation faces without one is far greater.
The founding fathers were concerned over a standing army because they were afraid that an army could undo everything about our democracy and rule by force. Whoever has the arms and the soldiers would rule the country. This is why the Second Amendment became so crucial for our democracy's success, so that no army would be able to rule the country by force. In short, law is nothing more than a human concept, which is why the only way to truly guarantee power to the people is to give them the ability to defend it. As for how relevant such a matter is today, while there is no clear abuse of power against the citizens of the United States by the government in terms of military usage, there is a strange example of the opposite. After the storming of the Capitol building on January 6th, there has been a seemingly permanent military presence there. However, these soldiers are not used by the government on the offensive, but rather on the defensive to protect the government from the people. A modern-day Praetorian Guard used in accordance with the FBI to investigate and protect the Capitol from future threats. However, As observed with the real Praetorian Guard, it is important that these troops are not permanent, or else there is the risk of military interference within our politics.
Riley, you're
Miss
muted.
Riley, you are muted.
I'm so sorry about that. The world suffers from abuse of power and governments overstepping their limits. The United States military is seen by its own members and civilians to be a savior of the third world countries and the less fortunate, as it has been since World War I. While it is necessary for the US to intervene in situations where human rights are being violated, it is also just as dire to ensure that it does not overstep its boundaries. Soldiers have been stationed all over the globe for many decades in order to provide guidance to democracy. It actively promotes the well-being of human rights and freedom from overarching governments that terrorize innocent victims of their birthplace. Being stationed across the world also ensures our economic and financial interests are well suited.
Although the picture of America being a savior is widely painted, it is necessary to look underneath this image. There have been multiple occasions in which the military's presence was unwanted or the actions carried out were morally un-American. The torture of prisoners within the Arugabi prison by American soldiers violated every principle in which the military stands on. The torture consisted of, but was not limited to, physical and sexual abuse, rape, sodomy, and murder. Regardless of what kind of criminals the prison held, this behavior demonstrated by those who fight for freedom is unacceptable and abhorrent. Hence, while America's presence is needed and essential, it also must be monitored diligently.
We must strive to be better, or China and Russia will begin to lead the world. What is to come if Africa, Brazil, and Southeast Asia look to China and Russia for guidance? We may lose our principles our great-grandparents fought so hard to establish, and we may have to fight another war to get them back. Thank you.
Thanks, everybody. And I'm also just noticing that I can see you in one of the screens, so you're up on stage, so you're actually next to each other. I think that's a really interesting device there. So let's jump back in. I'm actually going to ask you, I'm going to follow up on something you talked about, not too far from my house, Lafayette Square in DC. It was the site of protests over the summer. In particular, there was one protest in June 2020 when the president came out and actually, after the protesters were cleared, the president came out and appeared in a photo with Joint Chiefs of Staff Mark Milley. He's the head officer in the Army. He appeared in uniform after protesters were cleared. Can you actually, I'm going to ask you to defend that action. Why should Joint Chiefs of Staff head Mark Milley have appeared after protesters were cleared from Lafayette Square?
Despite even what may have happened there, I feel like showing that even there is still some form of unity and being able to stand with your president, even if you don't necessarily agree with everything that happened, is a good sign that you can show the people that you have faith in what our president can do.
I was interested in a comment that you made during your statement that the Second Amendment is important to suppress military coups. I'd like to hear more about that.
Of course. So the idea comes from the fact that during the Revolution and before, the colonies were kept complacent by a large British military presence, and they're afraid that such a military presence could occur within the formation of America as well. And they knew that, we could have all these laws and constitutions as we want, but if there is a strong military enforcing their rule upon the people, there will never be a truly free society. And so they had to give the people the means to guard their freedoms.
I have a follow-up question, which is, do you believe that the fact that citizens have weapons means that they have the ability to repel a military coup?
I do. I believe that, as demonstrated within the American Revolution, although it wasn't a coup by the British military, it was the citizens banding together to defeat I'm not going to go as far as to say an evil entity, but definitely a negative entity that was oppressing them.
When is the use of armed conflict of our military justified internationally? We've talked a little domestically here. Now let's talk internationally. When is it that the use of our military, not just our presence, but actually engaging in war in one form or another, when is that justified, in your opinion?
I think it's justified when human rights are being violated. I feel like that's a massive thing that we stand for in America, is not violating human rights. And so when a government or some type of other group violates another group's human rights, I feel like that's when it's necessary for us to intervene with force.
To go off of what my peer just said, I think a good example of this was the Yugoslavia bombings when they were found out to be committing an ethnic cleansing. The United Nations stepped in to put an end to it by using military force.
Do we need to wait for the United Nations or to get some sort of authority from an international organization before engaging?
I
I
think that,
think
I'm sorry, you can go. Oh, okay. I'm sorry about that. I think that it's important that we do consider what larger organizations than us are considering doing first, instead of just going fully into something that we're not sure what other countries, other organizations have thought about doing. It's important that we don't just rush headfirst into something on our own.
to go off what my peer was saying, I would also like to add that the United States is also kind of like a beacon. A lot of people look to us. So if we are the ones that perhaps lead the way, I think that can be a very good step in the right direction for other nations to follow our lead in events that are like, catastrophic to humanitarian rights.
I agree partially with what both my colleagues say. I do believe that it's important to take in the consideration of other nations, especially within the United Nations and international affairs. But at the same time, as to paraphrase Mark Twain, or I believe it was Mark Twain, who said that the world will be destroyed by people who do nothing. It's important to understand that every second you wait to act, there is a cost to it as well.
Thank you.
Military has taken a lot of criticism for their handling of sexual assault cases and allegations. Should the responsibility for trying military members be removed entirely from the military itself? Should military members be tried in civilian courts? What do you think about that idea?
I think it, in my opinion, it should absolutely be removed from the military because I feel that if it is kept within the military, there's going to be people who attempt to defend their actions of, sexually assaulting whoever. And I feel that if it's more drawn to a more civil court, it's going to be more just, and that there will be more progress made against sexual assault in the military.
I've also, to add on to what she said, I feel like there's less of an ability for things like cover-ups and just completely deflecting the problem if the issue is moved to a civil court. Because if a military soldier is tried in a civil court, they're going to be viewed the way a civilian would if they had sexually assaulted someone.
Part of what the military does now is some work in the cyber arena. They do both, as we understand it, cyber warfare and cyber security for the United States. Which of the two, warfare or security, should the military focus on?
Well, cybersecurity should always be the first priority, because to start conflicts without an attempt to prevent them or protect oneself to begin with is not ideal. I think everyone can agree that it would be better to avoid conflict if necessary and focus most of our efforts on prevention of conflict through security, like you said. But if necessary, then cyber warfare can be quite effective at taking down hostile networks.
In terms of power, does the executive branch have too much power currently in deciding when to use the military, either domestically or internationally?
So, as with the power granted to the executive branch over the military, the only unsuppressed power over the military. Can I finish my statement, please?
Yeah, yeah.
Thank you. So the president currently only has the executive authority to control and command Marines wherever he wants or she wants, unlimitedly. Otherwise, it's very brief actions that Congress has to allow.
Thank you very much, Unit 6, for a clear, well-organized, and thoughtful presentation. And we're going to give you a little bit of feedback right now. And before I go, I want to wish you a great rest of the day. You're off to a good start. You can relax, and you did a good job. The rubber really meets the road in this competition during follow-up questions. And you were able to answer those questions clearly, marshal some very solid ideas and examples, and demonstrate the ability to use your understanding of all of this and kind of think on your feet and present your side of the story. We presented you with some challenging questions. I mean, right out of the gate, we challenged you to take a particular position on an event that actually happened, and you were able to formulate an argument. And you probably could have formulated an argument on the other side of that as well. So I thought overall it was a very impressive performance. Again, if you can, the more kinds of examples that you can use, like for example, with my question, certainly the use of international organizations was a good thing. But then there were probably some other factors as well that factor into the use of military force, like, for example, going to Congress, which is the way it's rooted in the Constitution. So making at least reference to that constitutional anchor is always important. But I thought you did a fine job, my friends, and the stage and you did a nice job with presenting your really great ideas.
Yeah, thanks everybody. Echoing Tom's, I think I love the Praetorian Guard example, because that is a sort of a challenging one. And I do think my suggestion on this broad of a question, the idea would be the more examples, the more diverse examples you can give, right? Because there are so many. I mean, we were just talking about all the different questions and areas that this topic could go. So you show your familiarity with breadth or with depth. And so those are, you can kind of think, but maybe even if you're going to go deep on one thing, you want to acknowledge how broad the range of possible topics are. Just trying to give you some advice that might apply to other questions too, in case, because you got the rest of the day to nobly walk forth with Abe. So good luck, Illinois. Thanks.
Same. Good luck. Good luck, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Enjoy your day.